we are studying Shmuel I, the last chapter, 31, verse 1, and we sort of started it last time, but we ran out of time. We ran into time issues, so we'll repeat the first verse again. Uplishtim nilchamim b'Yisrael. So this is the last war of Shaul. In a couple of verses, he's going to finish his career, so to speak. Now the Philistines are fighting the Jewish people, and it's not going well. It's not going well. וינוסו אנשי ישראל מפני פלישתים ויפלו חללים בהר גלבוע. So it didn't go well, and what's first, the chicken or the egg? They started running away, and as they were running away, things didn't go well, and the Philistines were killing a lot of people in Har Gilboa. So I just wanted to this whole thing of running away is something that's really obviously not recommended in any war, to turn your back on your enemy, because then they'll have an open shot. But this is really coming directly from Jewish law, from Halakha. In a couple of weeks, we're going to read in Shul Parashat Kitetze, and Parashat Kitetze is the section of Torah that discusses all the halachot of war. And so the halachot of war is basically that you have the leader, the commander, the Kohen Gadol, standing, or the king is standing in front of the people and giving them a pep talk, and telling them basically that we're going to win, and we're going to the war, and tell them, there are three type of people who have exemptions, so you can step down, but all the rest of you are here to stay. And after he finishes the speech, so after they speak and tell the people the rules of engagement, so to speak, so they put the generals in the front, and in the back of the people, they're putting the police. They're putting the military police, and the military police is there to do one thing and one thing only, and that is they're holding. In those days they didn't have guns, so they're holding kshilim shel barzel. This is iron bats, batons. They rods, iron rods. So they're holding iron rods, and anyone who is trying to run away, to go back, to turn away from the fight, they're beating him up. They have the license to beat him in the legs, shoot in the legs, basically. This is not, you're not going anywhere. And the Gemara in Sotah is saying, why? Shetchilat nefila nisa, because the beginning of fleeing is a downfall. So when someone's starting to run away, that is if you turn your back on the battlefield, that's the beginning of the end. And we see, and it brings two verses, both of them from the book of Shmuel. One we learned early on, and one we're learning now. And that is that the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in the mountain of Gilboa. So that's obviously not good to run away. Now, we also mentioned another thing. We mentioned briefly that something that was learned from this war, and it actually started early on in an earlier war at the time of Shaul, but it's very famous halakha that King David initiated and pushed and made sure that it's being done. And that is because there was such chaos in the war and a lot of people died, We don't even know how many, because they were running away and there was no official collection of the bodies. We will see later that the bodies were collected by the enemy and held, hostages, so to speak. They held the bodies in a disgusting way. But it's common in in the Middle East with enemies. That's a common occurrence happening till this very day. So the point is that a lot of women remained agunot. A lot of women didn't know what happened to their husband. They said goodbye in the morning and they went to war, and they never seen it afterwards. And nobody saw them actually dying. And if someone just disappears and there are no witnesses that the person is dead, and there's no body to bury, the wife remains agunah. So from that point on, there was the David HaMelech saw that this happened, and he enacted a law that states as follow. The Gemara is saying in Shabbat, Kol hayotze lemilchemet b'nei David kotev get kritut leishto. That anyone who's going to wage a war, to participate in a war, so the Beis Din of David HaMelech is created a conditional conditional divorce paper for the wife. And that paper is being saved or being deposited somewhere safe, somewhere behind in the not in the front lines. And if the individual doesn't come back, or suspected that he's dead, so that get is being handed to his wife. It's called conditional get. Now, conditional get is in order to save, sometimes many people, many women from remaining tied to that husband that will never come back and not able to marry again. In modern days, not that modern, but modern compared to Shmuel, in the Second World War. In the Second World War, in April of 1943. April is 1943. There was the British Army started trying to fight back the Germans, and there was a unit. A transportation unit number 462 that was the first Israeli unit. It's called the unit Eretz Israeli unit, Israeli unit that was participating in the war. And I guess there were a bunch of drivers, and they left on boats on a bunch of boats. That were heading to Malta, to the island of Malta, and in that route in the Mediterranean, a lot of times the submarines, the German submarines and the German Air Force was spotting the boats and were sinking them. So the Rav Rashi, the chief rabbi of Israel, his name was at the time Herzog, right? He was at the time the father of Buji. So he arranged with those soldiers to sign on a conditional get. And the conditional get would be saved in the rabbinate. And if God forbid something happens to those soldiers, they will use it. And the wife is not, because they're going on when a ship is sunk and everybody is lost, or most people are lost, you don't have witnesses, you don't have bodies, you have nothing. And unfortunately, indeed, they had 37 boats, and it was a big fleet. And the German Air Force spotted them and bombed them. And that ship with those 140, 139 soldiers sunk, and most of them were lost, and they had to use this conditional get to save their wives, to let them. So it was used in modern times. there is even a memorial in Har Herzl for those for those 140 soldiers. It's a special. They have a pool of water and a boat on it, and it's a special thing just for those people. So they actually used it. Now, in more modern day, in the IDF is not really using it. Rav Goren, at the time when he set up the rules for the Israeli army, he decided not to do it. The halachic reason not to do it is because it's called get meuseh. Get meuseh is something like make-believe get that is not real. People didn't really rely on it, maybe. That's number one. Number two, it has an obvious morale, hit on the soldiers who suspect that they come home and they're not going to have anybody to come home to, and they're already divorced, so to speak, on papers. So the Israeli army decided officially not to use it, hopefully nobody will need to use it ever. But this is one of the places that this came from, is from this particular verse, from this particular war. Let's go back to where we were. Vayadbiku. So the Philistines were fighting very strongly. Vayadbiku Pelishtim et Shaul ve'et banav. So King Saul had 4 children, and 3 of them were fighting with him in this war. One of them did not, and he survived, and he will take the throne for 2 years. He will be a king after Shaul. His name is Ishboshet. He wasn't worthy of being a king. Apparently, he wasn't such worthy of being a soldier either. That's why he didn't join. And so Shaul stayed with his children. They were fighting in the unit together with him. ויכו פלישתים את יונתן ואת אבינדב ואת מלכישוע בני שאול. So the Philistines hit the 3 children and they killed them. So now Shaul is left alone. And so he started fighting back. ותכבד המלחמה על שאול. But Shaul, even though he was fighting back, it was hard for him. And then the unit of the archery unit, וימצאו המורים אנשים בקשת ויחל מאוד מהמורים. So he apparently was versed in fighting with a sword. And here you have archers who are spotted him, and there's nothing he can do about it. And they started shooting at him. And here it's translated Vayichal, that he was severely wounded. Vayichal means he was afraid, actually. So it was trembling, he was afraid. I don't know where the translation here that says that he was severely wounded. But he actually was afraid. And it's very important to understand the psyche of what happened here. If you recall, several weeks ago, we sort of paused for a few weeks to go through a war that was happening in parallel with David in the south, right? We went through a whole, description of what happened in that war in the south. The war that we're talking about now is happening in the north, and it's happening concurrently. So the annals of the war in the south were much different. David was successful and was able to be victorious. But here, the war was not successful. So we sort of lose track of what happened just 24 hours before the day that we were, because we had a stoppage of like a month talking about the other war. But the point is that 24 hours before the present moment where we stand in with Saul, he had an encounter with the soul of Shmuel. And so it's actually less than 24 hours. It was the night before. The night before, that's the soul of Shmuel. We're speaking to him. Again, a whole discussion we had how that came to be. But Shmuel basically told him, you're going to die tomorrow, you're going to die, and you're going to be with me. So Shaul sees what's going on. He lost 3 sons already. He sees that they're closing in on him. And now he has a quandary, what to do. So let's read first of all and then talk about what he actually did. So Vayomer Shaul enosek elav. So he basically wanted to commit suicide. He wanted to just die. He wanted to go away. He knew that he's destined to die because that's what Shmuel told him. So he knew he ain't surviving this war, apparently. And so Vayomer Shaul enosek elav. So he told his arm bearer, his personal assistant, the kid that would go around with him and carry his stuff. He told him, Shlof charbecha, draw your sword, v'tkareni ba, and kill me. And why? Because I don't want to fall in the hands of those enemies, of those uncircumcised enemy. Utkareni ba pen yavo ha'arelim ha'ele utkaruni, because they will come and they're fierce and they're going to hurt me. They're going to kill me anyway. Vitalelubi, but they're also going to mutilate my body. They're also going to torture me. And so therefore, because I'm already a goner, so to speak, just do it. That's what he told his arm bearer, his personal assistant. But the personal assistant did not want to do any of that. He knew that he refused. He's not going to kill his master. He's not going to kill the king of Israel. He knew that that's not something that's going to be good for his on his resume here or in the world to come. He was very afraid of doing that. So Saul took his sword and fell on it, and basically killed himself, or tried to kill himself. We'll see in a second. Let's just read one more verse and then we'll talk about it. So the arm bearer, the personal assistant, saw that Shaul is dead, so he also followed suit and committed suicide and died. So now let's talk about this whole episode, and I'm going to start with this. We're going to start with a verse in Bereshit, in Genesis, right after the flood. Right after the flood, God is setting up new rules of engagement, new rules of the world. And one of the rules of the world had to do with murder. And he says, but your own blood, lifeblood, I will require reckoning. I will require it from every beast, human or animal, right? Of man too, miyad adam, miyad ish achiv v'drosh et nefesh adam. In other words, you can't take someone else's life, any person, and God is going to come after you and come to demand to collect payment or retaliation for doing such a horrible thing of taking someone else's life. And the verse continues, Shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam davo yishafech, that whoever sheds the blood of men by men, shall his blood be shed, right? Ki b'tzelem Elokim asa et ha'adam. Now this is a very, what does it mean? It says that someone who sheds the blood of a person, his person, Adam Adam ba'Adam. It says several times the person Adam, the person. It should have said only once. So the rabbis are learning from here that it's not only that someone who is killing someone else, but if someone killing themselves, they also are guilty of a murder, essentially, and that's not allowed. So the big question is, what was our King Saul thinking? What did he do? What's going on here? So let's read a little bit the halachot of someone killing themselves, and don't try it at home. So המאבד עצמו לדעת, someone, unfortunately I don't have it, I don't have translation for it here on this wonderful Safaria software. So someone who is killing themselves, there is a law that they're banned. The people who are mourning are not doing anything special for them, in their honor, in the honor of the dead person, because that person did not honor his own life. So the mourners are not honoring him in return. So there is no kriya, not tearing of the clothes, right? And there is no, they don't wear special shoes, and they don't eulogize. However, things that had to do with the person themselves, the remainder, the survivor, the son or daughter who did not kill themselves, right? So those things they do because it's not their fault. So that includes also saying Kaddish. The halacha is that someone who committed suicide, the kids are saying Kaddish, because it's for both. It's not only for the deceased, it's also for the survivor. And it says, however, that this is and they're talking about if someone doing it while sane or not sane, but it says that here, and an adult who is sane-minded, but he is under duress, like Shaul, the king Saul. So you don't stop all of those things that you don't do for a regular person who committed suicide, you do for a king, for Shaul. And the question is why. So there is a lot of discussion about it, and I'll mention several ideas. Number one, it's Saul, as we said before, he knew that he is destined to die today. And he suspected, and rightfully so, that he is going to be tortured. Why rightfully so? Because he knew that not long ago, Shimshon, right, which was a judge, was a leader of the Jewish people, Shimshon HaGibor, he fell in the hands of the Philistines, the same people, and they tortured him. They tortured him until he was forced to actually commit suicide as well, right? Because he was bound to the pillars, and he took the pillars down, and the whole house came down, and 3,000 people died, including himself. So he basically committed suicide as well with the Philistines in order to retaliate, to save himself. So here Saul felt that he is next. He is another king of the Jews. He's falling in the hands of the Philistines. And they're not going to be nice. They didn't sign the Geneva Convention, and they're not going to be nice to him. They're not going to let, packages come from home or write letters or whatever. It's going to be hard. And he knew that he's not surviving. That he's not going to survive that. So he felt, and there is a leg. He had the leg to stand. That. He will kill himself. The rabbis, however, are saying that something like that is still not fully good, because just from being afraid of death, of being hurt, you kill yourself. Let someone else kill you. Another thing is. That so the rabbis are saying that here he had an additional reasoning, and that is he felt that it's going to be a detriment to the entire Jewish people. The disgrace that and the strength that the Philistines are going to gain from that disgrace is going to come back to hurt the entire Jewish community. They're going to be stronger, the Philistines. They're going to fight more. The Jews will try to fight back to save the king. He knew he's not going to survive anyway. and a lot of Jews are going to fall in the war, and it's going to be for nothing because he's not going to be survived anyway. And we're not talking about surviving even a day or a week. Or he knew that today, and this was in the afternoon already, today he is dead. So, sunset is in a couple of hours. What's the point? Why create such big chilul Hashem for the desecration of the name of God for the Jewish people? And the main thing is that he felt that at this point something like that is going to help the Jewish people more, because they will try to stop the war at this point, and a lot more soldiers will be rescued and survive as a result. So that's what he did. Wondering if the rabbi is here already. Yes, no. Anyway, but the point is that with King Saul, there is another explanation, and that is, and we will see later next time as we learn the next week. I think we'll get to it, maybe the week after. Is that apparently he wounded himself, but he was not killed. He was not able to kill himself. There was an Amalekite kid who was hanging around over there and saw what had happened and recognized who he was, and he actually finished him. So he tried to kill himself, but he didn't really succeed in killing himself, and therefore, that avera, that infraction of one killing themselves is not counted against him. So Vayamet Shaul Ushloshet Banav, so Saul died and all of his 3 children, Venosek Elav and his personal assistants, Gam Kol Anashav Bayom Hahu Yachdav, and all of his people together. A lot of people were lost, unfortunately, on that day. It was a very sad day. And so what happened next is, the rabbi is here? The rabbi is here.
You can take another minute if you want to finish.
No, it's all right. So just one more verse. So all of the remaining Jews that are on the other side of the valley, who were standing on the Mount Gilboa and saw this terrible war and saw what had happened and saw their brothers running away, and they were also on the other side of the Jordan River. So they saw that they lost the war, basically. Saul died and everybody else ran away. So they ran away from the cities, and the Philistines came and set in those cities. What happens is, during the war, if there is a city and the city doesn't have the guards because the soldiers ran away or died, it's easy to round up whoever remains in the city and kill everybody or take them as hostages or prisoners. So they were afraid, so they ran away to the mountains. Like in some other wars that we know, that with the Second World War, the partisans, right? So they ran to the mountains. So the Philistines walked in and took over their cities, and that is where we're going to end on a very sad note. So Saul is gone, and we'll see maybe next time we're going to be able to finish Shmuel and do a little bit of a siyum in honor of that. So Rabbi, the floor is yours. I'm sorry, I'm handing it over in such a sad note.